Good day everyone, I am Ms. Gaitera and today let us continue the report of Unit 2 which is Philosophical Thoughts in Education under Critical Pedagogy by Paulo Freire in 1921 to 1997. So Paulo Freire in 1921 to 1997, his work known as the Critical Pedagogy. His full name is Paulo Reglos Neves Freire. He was a Brazilian educator and philosopher who was a leading advocate of critical pedagogy. His influential work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, is generally considered as one of the foundational texts of critical pedagogy movement. So Paulo was a champion of what's known today as critical pedagogy, the belief that teaching should challenge learners to examine power structures and patterns of inequality within the status quo. His perspectives stem from the values of love, care, and solidarity. Freire emphasized how important it is to remember what is to be human and saw education as a way to transform oppressive structures. Now let us tackle about the Freire's banking concept of education. In his most famous book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Freire talks about education becoming an act of depositing. This approach has disempowering effect on learners and can create misuse of power. In this scenario, the teacher is all-knowing, kindly bestowing their knowledge onto those considered ignorant. So Freire's antidote to this dehumanizing approach to critical thinking and pedagogy that encourages participation. So here is how to incorporate Freire's theory in your own classroom. So there are three areas to consider in the light of Freire's work. So first is remember that teachers and children are both learners. Freire emphasized that the collaborative social nature of learning. He called for careful consideration of the power dynamic between teacher and learner so that learning is a joint venture instead of something more authoritarian. Next is develop their critical literacy. Learners should think critically about the things they read, see, and hear, and they can identify inequality or injustice. A learner with critical consciousness can frame questions around issues and look for possible answers because they have language which asks, is this fair? Was that just? Was there equality? And lastly, it encourages active inquiry and curiosity-led participation. This means that Freire believed that by preventing active inquiry in classrooms, you deny learners the opportunities for growing up into mature, autonomous people who can critically reflect on their world to make it a better place. So how can we integrate Freire's ideas in the classrooms? So first, implementing Freire's ideas of critical consciousness means opening your own eyes to the injustices around us. When you start to notice one important dominant in a group or society may be imposing a culture worldview on everyone else, you can begin to resist it. So there are practical things you do to reduce authoritarianism. Invite more inquiry and problem-posing learning opportunities, and develop critical literacy, and here are the examples. So use first names in your school and have an active student parliament. Next is admit that the teacher doesn't know everything. By owning up the mistakes, recognizing when a learner knows more than you do, and using their knowledge to support others' learning. Give choice by letting learners select an independent task to complete. You can give guidelines like how many tasks to do in that time, or whether to work alone with others. Make project work research-oriented. where a child follows their curiosity and makes a presentation to the class. In this example, you were more of a coach alongside than a teacher at the front. Think carefully about texts, clips, and other resources you use. Are they reflected of both sexes, a diversity of ethnicities, and socio-economic perspectives? Introduce the vocabulary of critical literacy by having conversations around social justice issues. Often there are current topical issues that you can discuss as a class. So, those are the practical things you can authoritarianism. As a human beings, we're all in the process of becoming more authentic. This is why Freire emphasized honestly confronting the realities we face, on carefully listening, on remembering what it means to be fully human, on using one's life experiences to think critically about that reality and how it might be changed. And that's all my report about Paulo Freire of critical pedagogy in 1921.